If you are a woman over 50 and you are spending New Year's Eve alone this year, if the idea of sitting by yourself while everyone else is celebrating feels unbearable, if you are dreading the countdown to midnight because it will just be you in an empty room watching the clock turn over into another year that feels exactly like the last, if you are terrified that being alone on New Year's Eve means something is fundamentally wrong with your life, this video is for you. Because what I am about to tell you will completely change how you think about being alone on one of the most socially performative nights of the year. The truth is, being alone on New Year's Eve is not the tragedy the culture tells you it is. But believing that lie, internalizing that shame, performing celebration you do not feel just to avoid being alone, that is what destroys you. And 2026 is going to be different. Because you are going to learn how to be alone on New Year's Eve without collapsing into shame, without drowning in loneliness, and without believing that your aloneness means you have failed at life. This video is not going to tell you how to make being alone fun. I am not going to give you a list of self-care activities and tell you to have a spa night and it will be amazing. Because that is toxic positivity and it is insulting. Being alone on New Year's Eve when you do not want to be alone is hard. It is painful, and pretending otherwise does not help. What I'm going to do is give you the psychological framework for understanding why being alone on this specific night feels so devastating. I am going to show you the 5 cultural lies that make aloneness on New Year's Eve feel like failure. I am going to explain the real reasons you might be alone and why none of them mean something is wrong with you. And then, I am going to give you 10 concrete strategies for surviving New Year's Eve alone without hating yourself, without spiraling into despair, and without spending the first week of January destroyed by shame. By the end of this video, you will understand that your worth is not determined by whether you have plans on December 31st. You will see that being alone is not the same as being lonely. You will recognize that the shame you feel is not truth. It is cultural programming. And you will have practical tools for getting through the night in ways that honor your reality instead of forcing yourself to perform joy you do not feel. You will walk into 2026 with your dignity intact, your self-respect protected, and the knowledge that you survived one of the hardest nights of the year without abandoning yourself. But before we go deeper, I need something from you right now. If you are spending New Year's Eve alone this year and you feel shame about it, if you are dreading the night, if you have been avoiding thinking about it because it makes you feel like a failure, subscribe to this channel immediately and turn on notifications. This is Enough and Whole, where we talk about the brutal reality of life after 50 for women who do not fit the cultural script. We do not shame you for being alone. We do not tell you to just try harder to make friends. We tell you the truth about why you are alone, how the culture weaponizes aloneness against you, and how to survive with your self-worth intact. Every week, I bring you content that sees you exactly as you are and refuses to minimize your experience. So subscribe now, hit that bell, and let's continue. Now let me start by naming what is actually happening to you right now, in the weeks leading up to New Year's Eve. You are being bombarded with images of celebration. Every commercial, every movie, every social media post shows people in groups, laughing, drinking champagne, counting down together, kissing at midnight, celebrating the new year surrounded by people they love, and every image you see sends you a message. This is what New Year's Eve is supposed to look like. This is normal. This is what happy, successful, socially connected people do. And if you are not doing this, if you are alone, something is wrong with you. You are failing. You are broken. You are unlovable. You are pathetic. And that message sinks in. Even when you know intellectually that it is not true, even when you can list all the legitimate reasons you are alone that have nothing to do with your worth, the message still sinks in. Because it is everywhere. It is relentless. And by the time December 31st arrives, you are drowning in shame. You are ashamed that you do not have plans. You are ashamed that you do not have people to celebrate with. You are ashamed that you are going to be alone while everyone else is together, and that shame makes you feel small, invisible, worthless, like you are the only person in the world who is spending New Year's Eve alone, like your aloneness is proof that you are fundamentally defective. But here is the truth that nobody is telling you. Millions of people spend New Year's Eve alone. Millions. And most of them feel exactly the way you feel. They feel ashamed. They feel lonely. They feel like failures, because the culture has convinced everyone that being alone on New Year's Eve is the ultimate social failure. But it is not. It is just a night. December 31st is just a date on the calendar. It has no inherent meaning except the meaning the culture assigns to it. And the culture assigns it enormous meaning because New Year's Eve is a performative ritual designed to reinforce social hierarchies, to separate the people who belong from the people who do not, to make people who are alone feel like they are less than. And that is not your failure. That is systemic cruelty. Walter Riso teaches that loneliness and aloneness are not the same thing. Aloneness is a circumstance. Loneliness is an emotional state. You can be alone and not lonely. You can be surrounded by people and profoundly lonely. And the goal is not to never be alone. The goal is to be able to be alone without collapsing into shame and despair. To be able to sit with yourself on New Year's Eve or any other night and not feel like your aloneness is evidence of your unworthiness. And that is what this video is going to teach you. How to be alone on New Year's Eve without internalizing the lie that your aloneness means you have failed. So if you are spending New Year's Eve alone this year, whether by choice or by circumstance, whether you are okay with it or devastated by it, I need you to hear this. You are not pathetic. You are not a failure. You are not unlovable. You are a woman over 50 navigating a culture that discards women the moment they are no longer young, a culture that makes connection harder as you age, a culture that isolates you and then shames you for being isolated. And your aloneness is not your fault. It is not proof that something is wrong with you. It is proof that something is wrong with the culture. And once you see that clearly, once you stop internalizing the shame, everything changes. Not immediately, not easily, but gradually. And that shift is what this video is going to give you. Now let's break down the 5 specific lies the culture tells you about being alone on New Year's Eve. These lies are so deeply embedded that you probably believe them without even questioning them. You think they are truth. You think they are reality, but they are not. They are culturally constructed narratives designed to make you feel shame, so you will keep performing, keep consuming, keep participating in rituals that do not actually serve you. And once you see these lies clearly, once you can name them and reject them, they lose their power over you. The first lie is that being alone on New Year's Eve means you are socially unsuccessful. The culture treats New Year's Eve like a social report card. If you have plans, if you are with people, if you are celebrating, you pass. You are socially successful. You are likable. You are worthy. But if you are alone, you fail. You are socially unsuccessful. You are unlikable. You are unworthy. And that binary is absurd. Because having plans on one specific night of the year does not measure your social worth. It does not measure the quality of your relationships. It does not measure whether you are loved. It just measures whether you happen to have plans on December 31st. And that is not a meaningful metric. You could have deep, meaningful friendships and still be alone on New Year's Eve because your friends have other plans, because you chose to be alone, because circumstances made gathering impossible. You could be surrounded by people on New Year's Eve and still be profoundly lonely because those relationships are shallow, because you are performing, because nobody actually sees you. So the idea that New Year's Eve plans are a measure of social success is a lie. It is a cultural story designed to make you feel inadequate, so you will keep trying to perform social connection even when that performance exhausts you and costs you your authenticity. Walter Riso teaches that social worth is not determined by external validation. Social worth is internal. It is about how you value yourself, how you treat yourself, whether you can be with yourself without shame. And if you can be alone on New Year's Eve without collapsing into self-hatred, you have more social worth than someone who is surrounded by people but hates themselves the entire time. So reject the lie. Being alone on New Year's Eve does not mean you are socially unsuccessful. It means you are alone on December 31st. That is all. It is descriptive. It is not evaluative. The second lie is that you should be celebrating. The culture treats New Year's Eve like a mandatory celebration. You are supposed to be excited. You are supposed to feel hopeful about the new year. You are supposed to toast to new beginnings and feel joy. But what if you do not feel any of that? What if you look back at the year that just ended and all you feel is grief, exhaustion, disappointment, or relief that it is over? What if you look forward to the year ahead and all you feel is dread or numbness or uncertainty? You are allowed to feel that. You are allowed to not want to celebrate. You are allowed to let December 31st pass like any other night without forcing yourself to perform joy you do not feel. The cultural mandate to celebrate is oppressive. It tells you that your real emotions are unacceptable, that you need to put them away and perform happiness. And that performance is exhausting. It is self-abandoning. It disconnects you from yourself. So if you do not want to celebrate, do not celebrate. You are not required to feel hopeful just because the calendar is changing. You are not required to feel excited just because everyone else is. You are allowed to feel however you feel. And honoring those feelings instead of performing against them is what allows you to stay connected to yourself. The third lie is that being alone means you are lonely. Aloneness and loneliness are not the same thing. Aloneness is a physical state. You are by yourself. Loneliness is an emotional state. You feel disconnected, unseen, isolated, and you can experience one without the other. You can be alone and not lonely. You can be surrounded by people and devastatingly lonely. So the assumption that being alone on New Year's Eve automatically means you are lonely is false. Maybe you are lonely. Maybe being alone on this night highlights a loneliness you carry all the time. But maybe you are not. Maybe you are alone and perfectly content. Maybe you prefer being alone to performing connection you do not feel. Maybe you are alone because you chose to protect your peace instead of forcing yourself into social situations that deplete you. The culture conflates aloneness with loneliness because it wants you to believe that you need other people to validate your existence, that you are not enough on your own, that being alone is something to be ashamed of. But that is a lie designed to keep you dependent on external validation. The truth is, you are enough on your own. You do not need other people to make you whole. Connection is beautiful when it is genuine, but forced connection, performative connection, connection that exhausts you, is worse than being alone. So, if you are alone on New Year's Eve, do not assume that means you are lonely. Check in with yourself. How do you actually feel? And honor that truth instead of accepting the culture's interpretation of your experience. The fourth lie is that your aloneness is permanent. When you are alone on New Year's Eve, your brain panics. It tells you this is how it is always going to be. You are always going to be alone. You are going to spend every holiday, every celebration, every significant moment alone for the rest of your life. And that belief is terrifying. It makes being alone on one night feel like a preview of your entire future. But that belief is not truth. It is catastrophic thinking. It is your brain taking one data point, being alone on December 31st, and extrapolating it into a permanent state. But circumstances change. Relationships change. You change. Being alone on this New Year's Eve does not mean you will be alone on every New Year's Eve. It does not mean you are doomed to lifelong isolation. It just means you are alone right now. And right now is not forever. Walter Riso teaches that catastrophic thinking is a cognitive distortion that amplifies suffering. And the antidote is bringing yourself back to the present moment. You are not living your entire future tonight. You are living tonight, and tonight you are alone, and you can survive tonight. You do not have to solve your entire life tonight. You do not have to figure out how to never be alone again. You just have to get through tonight, and getting through tonight is manageable. So when your brain tells you this is permanent, you talk back. You say, "This is tonight, not forever. Just tonight, and I can survive tonight." The fifth lie is that other people's New Year's Eve celebrations are as perfect as they look. You see people posting on social media. Everyone looks happy. Everyone looks connected. Everyone looks like they are having the time of their lives. And you compare your reality, sitting alone, to their appearance of perfection. And you feel worse. You feel like everyone else has figured out how to be happy and connected, and you are the only one who is failing. But what you are seeing on social media is not reality. It is performance. It is the best 3 seconds of their night edited and filtered and posted to create an image of perfection. You are not seeing the fights that happened before the photo. You are not seeing the loneliness people feel even in a crowded room. You are not seeing the exhaustion of performing joy. You are not seeing the people who went home early and cried. You are seeing a curated illusion. And comparing your reality to someone else's performance is a setup for despair. So stop consuming other people's New Year's Eve content. Stop scrolling. Stop comparing. Stop torturing yourself with images of celebrations you are not part of. Because those images are not giving you accurate information about reality. They are just making you feel worse. And feeling worse does not serve you. So protect yourself. Turn off social media. Put down your phone. And focus on your own reality instead of comparing it to everyone else's fiction. Now let's talk about why you are actually alone on New Year's Eve. Because the culture wants you to believe there is only one reason. Something is wrong with you. But that is not true. There are dozens of legitimate, non-shameful reasons women over 50 end up alone on New Year's Eve. And naming those reasons, seeing them clearly, is part of releasing the shame. Because when you understand that your aloneness is not your failure, you can stop hating yourself for it. The first reason is that your social circle has changed. By the time you reach 50, your social landscape is completely different than it was at 30. People have moved away. People have died. People have drifted apart. Friendships that were once close have faded. And rebuilding a social circle at 50 is hard. It is hard to meet people. It is hard to form new friendships. It is hard to find your people when you do not have the built-in social structures of school or young parenthood or early career. So you might be alone on New Year's Eve simply because your social circle has shrunk and you have not yet rebuilt it. And that is not your failure. That is a predictable consequence of aging in a culture that does not create social infrastructure for older adults. The second reason is that you have standards now. At 30, you might have spent New Year's Eve with people you did not particularly like, just to avoid being alone. You would have gone to a party where you did not know anyone. You would have forced yourself into social situations that made you uncomfortable. But at 50, you do not do that anymore. You know yourself. You know what drains you. You know what kinds of people and situations are tolerable and what kinds are unbearable. So you might be alone on New Year's Eve because the only plans available to you were plans that would have harmed you. Plans with people who do not see you. Plans at events that would have required you to perform. And you chose to be alone instead. And that is not failure. That is wisdom. That is you protecting yourself. Walter Rizzo teaches that saying no to harmful connection is an act of self-respect, and self-respect sometimes means being alone. Because being alone with your dignity intact is better than being with people who make you feel invisible, judged, or depleted. So, if you are alone because you chose not to attend gatherings that would have harmed you, that is something to be proud of. That is you prioritizing your well-being over social expectation. And that is growth, not failure. The third reason is that you are grieving. Maybe you lost someone this year, a partner, a parent, a sibling, a friend. And the idea of celebrating feels impossible. Celebrating feels like betrayal. So you are alone because you are honoring your grief instead of performing joy you do not feel. Or maybe you are not grieving a death. Maybe you are grieving a divorce, a friendship that ended, a life you thought you would have that did not materialize. And that grief makes celebration unbearable. So you are alone, and that is not failure. That is you honoring your emotional reality instead of forcing yourself to pretend you are fine. The fourth reason is that you are exhausted. Maybe this year was brutal. Maybe you have been caregiving. Maybe you have been working too much. Maybe you have been carrying everyone else's emotions. Maybe you have just been surviving. And by the time New Year's Eve arrives, you have nothing left. You do not have the energy to go out. You do not have the energy to socialize. You do not have the energy to perform. So you are alone because your body and your nervous system are demanding rest. And that is not failure. That is your body protecting you. That is you finally listening to what you need instead of overriding it to meet social expectations. The fifth reason is that you chose to be alone. Not because you could not find plans, but because you genuinely wanted to be alone. Because you value solitude. Because you find New Year's Eve exhausting and performative, and you would rather spend the night quietly with yourself. Because you do not need external validation to feel okay about your life. Because you are comfortable with yourself. And choosing to be alone, genuinely choosing it, is not failure. It is autonomy. It is self-knowledge. It is you living according to your own values instead of performing for the culture. And that is powerful. So whatever the reason you are alone, none of those reasons mean something is wrong with you. All of them are legitimate. All of them are understandable. And all of them are reasons to practice self-compassion instead of self-criticism. You are not alone because you are defective. You are alone because life circumstances, personal choices, or self-protection led you to this moment. And this moment is just one moment. It is not your entire life. It is not your permanent state. It is just where you are right now. And where you are right now is okay. Now we need to talk about what shame actually does to you when you internalize the belief that being alone on New Year's Eve is failure. Because most people minimize this. They think, it is just one night. It is not that big of a deal. You will be fine. But that is not how shame works. Shame is not contained to one night. Shame spreads. Shame deepens. And shame, when it is not addressed, becomes toxic and long-lasting. So let's break down the specific psychological damage that shame about being alone creates. The first damage is that shame makes you believe you are fundamentally defective. Shame does not say, you made a mistake. Shame says, you are a mistake. You are broken. You are unlovable. And when you internalize shame about being alone on New Year's Eve, you start to believe that your aloneness is proof of your defectiveness. You think, if I were more likable, I would have plans. If I were more interesting, people would want to be with me. If I were more worthy, I would not be alone. And that belief, that core belief that you are defective, poisons everything. It affects how you see yourself. It affects how you show up in relationships. It affects your willingness to connect with people because you believe that if they really knew you, they would reject you. So shame becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. It makes you believe you are unlovable, and that belief makes you act in ways that push people away, and then you point to the fact that you are alone as proof that you were right all along. Walter Riso teaches that shame is the most toxic emotion a person can carry because it attacks your core identity. And shame that is not addressed, shame that is internalized and carried, becomes part of how you see yourself. You become someone who believes they are fundamentally unworthy. And that belief makes it almost impossible to connect authentically with others. Because you are always waiting for them to discover the truth about you. Always waiting for them to realize you are defective and leave. And that anxiety sabotages connection before it even begins. The second damage is that shame isolates you further. When you feel ashamed about being alone, you hide. You do not tell anyone you are spending New Year's Eve alone. You lie. You say you have plans when you do not. You avoid conversations about the holiday. You disappear from social media so nobody sees that you are not celebrating, and that hiding deepens your isolation. Because when you hide your reality, you cut yourself off from the possibility of connection. You cut yourself off from people who might understand, people who might be alone too. People who might say, "Me too, I am spending New Year's Eve alone. Do you want to spend it together?" But you never find those people because you are hiding in shame. So shame does not just make you feel isolated, it actively creates more isolation. And isolation makes shame worse. And the cycle deepens. The third damage is that shame makes you reject yourself. When you are ashamed of being alone, you start to hate yourself. You look at your life and all you see is failure. You see all the ways you are not enough, all the ways you are not like other people, all the ways you are falling short, and that self-rejection is devastating. Because the relationship you have with yourself is the foundation of your entire life. And if that relationship is poisoned by shame, if you cannot look at yourself without disgust, you are living in a constant state of psychological violence. You are at war with yourself. And that war is exhausting. It drains you. It makes everything harder. It makes joy impossible. Because how can you experience joy when you hate the person experiencing it? The fourth damage is that shame makes you desperate for validation. When you are carrying shame about being alone, you become desperate to prove that you are not defective. So you chase connection. You say yes to plans that do not serve you. You tolerate relationships that harm you. You perform and perform and perform, trying to prove that you are likable, that you are worthy, that you are enough. And that desperation is obvious. People can feel it, and desperation repels people. So you end up pushing away the very connection you are desperate for. And then you point to that rejection as more proof that you are defective. And the shame deepens. So shame creates a cycle of desperation and rejection that is incredibly difficult to break. Walter Rizzo teaches that the antidote to shame is self-compassion. And self-compassion means treating yourself the way you would treat a dear friend who is struggling. You do not look at a friend who is alone on New Year's Eve and think, "You are defective." You think, "This is hard. You are doing your best. You are worthy of love even when you are alone." And you need to give yourself that same compassion. You need to look at yourself alone on New Year's Eve and say, "This is hard. But I am not defective. I am not unlovable. I am just alone right now. And that is okay." And practicing that compassion over and over is what begins to dissolve the shame. Now I need to pause and ask you something directly. Which damage from shame resonates most with you? Type 1 in the comments if it is believing you are fundamentally defective. Type 2 if it is isolating yourself further by hiding. Type 3 if it is rejecting yourself and hating your life. Type 4 if it is desperate attempts to prove your worth. Just type the number, because naming which form of shame is loudest in your life is the first step toward addressing it. So pause, go to the comments, type your number, and see how many other women are experiencing the same damage. You are not alone in this. Thousands of women are carrying shame about being alone, and recognizing that is part of releasing it. Now we move into the practical tools, the strategies you can use to survive New Year's Eve alone without collapsing into shame, without spiraling into despair, and without hating yourself. These are not about making the night fun. They are about making it survivable, about protecting your self-worth, about getting through December 31st and waking up on January 1st with your dignity intact. And the first two tools are about changing how you think and planning intentionally. The first tool is cognitive reframing. Right now, your brain is interpreting being alone on New Year's Eve as proof of failure. It is saying, you are alone because something is wrong with you. But that interpretation is causing you enormous suffering. So you need to consciously, deliberately reframe what being alone means. The new frame is this: I am alone on New Year's Eve because of circumstances, choices, or self-protection, not because I am defective. This is one night. It is not my entire life. It is not proof that I am unlovable. It is just a night I am spending alone, and I can survive a night alone. This reframe has to be practiced actively, because your default thinking is automatic. It is habitual. It runs in the background without you even noticing, so you have to interrupt it. Every time you catch yourself thinking, I am alone because something is wrong with me, you stop, and you replace it with, I am alone tonight for legitimate reasons. This does not mean I am defective. This means I am alone, and that is okay. And you do this over and over, 50 times on December 31st if you have to, because repetition is what rewires thinking. One reframe will not change anything, but 50 reframes, 100 reframes, practiced consistently, will start to change how your brain interprets your reality. Walter Riso teaches that cognitive reframing is one of the most powerful psychological tools we have because it changes the meaning we assign to experiences. And meaning determines suffering. Two women spend New Year's Eve alone. One believes it is proof she is defective and she suffers enormously. The other believes it is just a circumstance and she suffers less. Same circumstance, different suffering, because the story is different. So change the story. Make being alone on New Year's Eve about circumstance, not about defectiveness, and practice that story until it becomes your default. The second tool is planning the day intentionally instead of hoping you will just get through it. If you go into December 31st with no plan, if you just let the day happen to you, you will spend the entire day ruminating. You will spend it scrolling social media, watching other people celebrate. You will spend it catastrophizing about your future. You will spend it drowning in shame, and by midnight, you will be destroyed. So, you need a plan, not a plan to make the day fun. A plan to make the day manageable, a plan that protects you from the things that will make it worse and includes the things that will make it bearable. Here is how to plan intentionally. The week before New Year's Eve, sit down and map out December 31st hour by hour. Not rigidly, just generally. What will you do in the morning? What will you do in the afternoon? What will you do in the evening? And as you plan, you ask yourself, what will make this harder? And what will make this more bearable? Things that make it harder: scrolling social media, drinking alcohol alone, sitting in silence, ruminating, watching romantic movies, calling people who make you feel bad about yourself. Things that make it bearable: moving your body, being in nature, doing something with your hands, watching something that does not romanticize New Year's Eve, talking to people who see you, having a ritual that honors your reality. So your plan includes the bearable things and excludes the harmful things. For example, morning, go for a walk. Do not check social media. Afternoon, cook something you enjoy or order takeout. Watch a movie that has nothing to do with New Year's Eve. Evening, take a bath. Journal. Go to bed early if you want. Do not stay up until midnight if staying up feels like torture. There is no rule that says you have to be awake at midnight. You are allowed to sleep through the transition into the new year. And in fact, sleeping through it might be the kindest thing you can do for yourself. The key is that you are not leaving the day to chance. You are not hoping you will spontaneously feel okay. You are actively managing the day in ways that protect your emotional well-being. And that management is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is you recognizing that this is a hard day and you need to be intentional about how you navigate it. So make your plan, write it down, and follow it. And when your brain tries to pull you into rumination or social media or catastrophizing, you look at your plan and you do the next thing on the list. You do not negotiate, you just do it. Because the plan is what keeps you from drowning. The third tool is setting strict boundaries with social media on December 31st. This is non-negotiable. If you want to survive New Year's Eve with your self-worth intact, you cannot spend the day consuming other people's celebrations. Because every image you see, every post, every story, is a weapon against your peace. It is someone else's curated performance that makes you feel like your reality is inadequate. And you do not need that. You do not need to torture yourself by watching everyone else's highlight reel while you are sitting alone feeling like a failure. So the boundary is simple: no social media on December 31st. Not at all. Not even for 5 minutes. Not even to just check in, because 5 minutes turns into an hour, and an hour turns into the entire day. And by the end of the day, you have consumed hundreds of images of people celebrating, and you feel worse than you did when you started. So you delete the apps from your phone, or you turn off your phone entirely, or you give your phone to someone else if you do not trust yourself. Whatever it takes to create a barrier between you and social media. Because protecting yourself from comparison is part of survival. And if people text you asking what your plans are, if people send you New Year's Eve messages, you do not feel obligated to respond immediately. You respond when you are ready, or you do not respond at all. You are not required to perform for anyone on December 31st. You are not required to pretend you are celebrating when you are not. You are allowed to be unavailable. You are allowed to protect your peace by not engaging with people who will make you feel worse. So set your boundaries, protect them, and do not feel guilty about it. Walter Rizzo teaches that boundaries are not walls. Boundaries are filters. They let in what nourishes you and keep out what harms you. And on New Year's Eve, when you are vulnerable, when you are already struggling, you need strong filters. You need to be protective of what you consume and who you interact with, because you do not have unlimited capacity to handle harm. Your capacity is limited, and protecting that capacity is not selfishness, it is survival. The fourth tool is creating a personal ritual to mark the transition into the new year. The culture gives you one script for New Year's Eve: celebrate with people, count down to midnight, toast with champagne, kiss someone, feel hopeful and excited. But that script does not fit your reality, so you need to create your own. A ritual that honors where you actually are. Not where the culture thinks you should be, where you actually are. And that ritual does not have to look like anyone else's. It just has to be meaningful to you. Here are some examples. You write a letter to yourself. You reflect on the year that just ended. What did you survive? What did you learn? What are you proud of? What are you grieving? You write it all down. And then you write what you hope for in the year ahead. Not resolutions, not obligations, just hopes. What would make the next year feel more aligned with who you are? What would bring you peace? And you seal that letter, and you put it somewhere safe. And you open it next December 31st, and you see how far you have come. Another ritual: you light a candle at 11:50 p.m. You sit with the candle. You acknowledge that the year is ending. You say out loud, "I survived this year. It was hard, but I am still here, and I am going to survive the next year too." And then at midnight, you blow out the candle, and you go to bed. The ritual is simple, but it is intentional. It marks the transition. It honors your survival. And it does not require anyone else. Another ritual: you take a walk at midnight, you step outside, you feel the air, you look at the sky, and you say, "This is my new year. I am beginning it alone, and that is okay. I am enough." And then you go inside, and you rest. The ritual does not have to be elaborate. It does not have to be Instagram-worthy. It just has to be yours. It has to feel true to you. It has to honor your reality instead of forcing you into someone else's script. And having that ritual, that intentional moment, is what allows you to mark the transition without collapsing into despair. Because you are not just passively enduring the night, you are actively creating meaning. And meaning, even small meaning, is powerful. Let me tell you about Helen. She is 63. Last year, she spent New Year's Eve alone for the first time in 40 years. Her husband had died earlier that year, and she was terrified. She thought she would spend the entire night crying. But she planned a ritual. She made herself dinner. She wrote her husband a letter. She told him everything she wished she could say. And at midnight, she went outside. She looked at the stars, and she said, "I love you, I miss you, and I am going to survive this year without you." And then she went to bed. And when she woke up on January 1st, she felt not good, but not destroyed. She had survived, and surviving felt like enough. Helen told me, the ritual gave me something to do, something to focus on, and it honored my reality instead of forcing me to pretend I was celebrating. That is what rituals do. They give you structure, they give you purpose, and they honor your truth instead of demanding performance. The fifth tool is reaching out for intentional connection if you want it. Being alone on New Year's Eve does not mean you have to be completely isolated. If you want connection, if you want to talk to someone, you are allowed to reach out. Not to people who will make you feel worse, not to people who will judge you or pity you or tell you that you should have plans, but to people who see you, people who understand, people who will sit with you in your reality without trying to fix it. And here is how to reach out. You text or call one or two safe people. You say, "I am spending New Year's Eve alone and I am struggling. Can we talk for a bit?" Or, "I am alone tonight and I just want to hear a friendly voice. Do you have 10 minutes? You do not apologize. You do not minimize. You just ask. And if they are safe people, they will say yes, and you talk. Not about how pathetic you feel. Not about how everyone else is celebrating. You just talk. About anything. About nothing. The content does not matter. What matters is that you are being witnessed, that you are not completely alone, that someone knows you exist and cares that you are struggling. And if the people you reach out to are not available, if they have plans, you do not take it personally. You try someone else, or you reach out to an online community. There are forums, Facebook groups, subreddits for people spending New Year's Eve alone. You post, "I am alone tonight, and I am struggling." And people respond. People say, "Me too," and that "me too" is powerful. It reminds you that you are not the only person in the world spending New Year's Eve alone, that millions of people are in the same situation. And that knowledge makes it more bearable. Walter Riso teaches that connection, even brief connection, even digital connection, is protective against despair. Because despair thrives in isolation. Despair tells you that you are the only one suffering, that you are uniquely defective. But connection breaks that narrative. Connection reminds you, I am not alone in my aloneness. Other people are here too, and we are surviving together. So if you want connection, reach for it. Do not wait for people to reach out to you. Reach out, ask, and let yourself be witnessed. The sixth tool is giving yourself explicit permission to go to bed early. You do not have to stay up until midnight. There is no rule that says you have to be awake when the clock strikes 12. That is a cultural expectation. It is not a requirement. And if staying up until midnight means spending hours ruminating, catastrophizing, and drowning in shame, then going to bed early is the kindest thing you can do for yourself. So at 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. or whenever you feel tired, you go to bed. You do not fight it. You do not force yourself to stay up because you think you should. You just go to bed. And going to bed early is not giving up. It is not failure. It is self-care. It is you recognizing that your body needs rest, that your nervous system needs a break from the intensity of the day, that sleeping through the transition into the new year is a valid choice. And when you wake up on January 1st, the hard night is over. You survived. You made it to the other side. And that is success. Here is what giving yourself permission sounds like. You say out loud, I am allowed to go to bed before midnight. I am allowed to sleep through New Year's Eve. I am not required to stay up. I am not required to witness the moment the year changes. I am allowed to rest, and then you get in bed. You turn off your phone. You close your eyes, and you let yourself sleep, and if you wake up at 12:05 a.m. and realize you missed midnight, you do not feel guilty. You think, good, I slept, I rested, I survived, and now it is January 1st and I am okay. Let me tell you about Joan. She is 58. She spent New Year's Eve alone 3 years ago. She tried to stay up until midnight. She watched the countdown on television, and the moment the clock struck 12, she started sobbing. She felt so alone, so pathetic, so devastated. The next year, she did something different. She went to bed at 10 p.m. She took a sleeping pill, and she slept straight through until morning. And when she woke up on January 1st, she felt relief. The hard night was over. She had survived by sleeping through it, and that was okay. Joan told me, I used to think sleeping through New Year's Eve was cowardly. But now I see it as survival. I protected myself from a night that was going to harm me. And that is not weakness. That is wisdom. That is the truth. Sleeping through New Year's Eve is not weakness. It is protection. It is you choosing to rest instead of enduring. And that choice is valid. Before we continue with the final tools, I need you to do something. If this video is helping you see that being alone on New Year's Eve is not failure, if you are starting to believe that you can survive this night without hating yourself, subscribe to this channel right now and turn on notifications. Because in early January, I am releasing a video about how to navigate the pressure to have New Year's resolutions when you are just trying to survive. You are going to need that video. So subscribe now, hit that bell, and let's finish with the final tools that will help you survive December 31st. The 7th tool is treating yourself with active gentleness on December 31st. This is not the day to be hard on yourself. This is not the day to criticize yourself. This is not the day to look at your life and catalog everything you have not accomplished. This is the day to be gentle, to be kind, to treat yourself the way you would treat a child who is scared and sad. And that gentleness has to be active. It has to be intentional. Because your default mode, especially when you are alone and ashamed, is self-criticism. So you have to actively interrupt that mode and replace it with gentleness. Here is what active gentleness looks like. When you wake up on December 31st, the first thing you say to yourself is, today is going to be hard, and I am going to be kind to myself as I move through it. I am not going to judge myself. I am not going to criticize myself. I am just going to be gentle. And then every time you catch yourself being self-critical, every time you catch yourself thinking, I am pathetic, or I am a failure, or something is wrong with me, you stop. And you replace it with, I am struggling, and that is okay. I am allowed to struggle. I am doing my best, and my best is enough. Active gentleness also means doing small things that comfort you, making yourself your favorite tea, wrapping yourself in a soft blanket, taking a hot bath, lighting a candle, listening to music that soothes you, watching something that makes you feel less alone. These are not frivolous. These are not distractions. These are acts of self-care. They are you communicating to yourself, I matter. I am worth caring for, even on a hard day, especially on a hard day. And that communication is what protects you from shame. Walter Riso teaches that self-compassion is the antidote to shame. And self-compassion is not just thinking nice thoughts. It is action. It is treating yourself with care. It is speaking to yourself with kindness. It is making choices that prioritize your well-being instead of forcing yourself into suffering because you think you deserve to suffer. You do not deserve to suffer. You deserve gentleness. And giving that to yourself is not weakness. It is strength. The 8th tool is not making any big life decisions on December 31st or January 1st. When you are alone on New Year's Eve, when you are drowning in shame and catastrophizing about your future, your brain will try to solve the problem. It will say, I need to change everything. I need to move. I need to quit my job. I need to cut off all my relationships. I need to completely reinvent my life. And those thoughts feel urgent. They feel necessary. But they are not. They are panic. They are your brain trying to escape discomfort by creating the illusion that dramatic action will fix everything. But dramatic action made from a place of shame and panic almost always makes things worse. So the tool is this. No big decisions on December 31st or January 1st. You do not decide to move. You do not decide to end relationships. You do not decide to quit your job. You do not decide anything major. You just survive the night. And then you give yourself at least a week, preferably a month, before you make any significant decisions. Because decisions made from shame are almost never good decisions. Decisions made from clarity, from calm, from self-compassion, those are good decisions. But you cannot access clarity when you are in the middle of a shame spiral. So you table all big decisions. You write them down if you need to. You say, I will think about this in February, but I am not deciding anything right now. Right now, I am just surviving. And if your brain keeps insisting that you need to decide something right now, you talk back. You say, no, this is not the time. I am not in a state to make good decisions. I am going to wait, and I am going to trust that waiting is the right choice, because waiting is almost always the right choice when you are in crisis. Waiting gives you time. Time to calm down, time to gain perspective, time to access clarity. And clarity is what allows you to make decisions that actually serve you instead of decisions that are just reactions to pain. Let me tell you about Sandra. She is 61. 3 years ago, she spent New Year's Eve alone after her divorce, and she was so devastated that she decided, I am moving. I am leaving this city. I am starting over somewhere completely new. And she almost did it. She almost sold her house and moved across the country. But a friend talked her out of it. Her friend said, wait. Do not make this decision right now. Wait 6 months and see how you feel. And Sandra waited. And 6 months later, she realized, I do not actually want to move. I was just trying to escape the pain, and moving would not have solved anything. It would have just created new problems. Sandra told me, I am so grateful I waited, because the decision I almost made from shame would have destroyed my life. Waiting gave me time to calm down, and calmness gave me clarity. And clarity saved me. That is the power of not making big decisions when you are in crisis. Waiting is not weakness. Waiting is wisdom. The 9th tool is redefining what success means for December 31st. Right now, your definition of success is probably something like, I should be celebrating, I should be happy, I should be with people, I should feel hopeful about the new year. But that definition is setting you up for failure. Because if that is success, and you are alone and not celebrating and not happy, then you are failing. And that failure reinforces shame. So you need a new definition of success, a definition that is actually achievable, a definition that honors your reality. Here is the new definition. Success on December 31st is surviving the night without harming yourself and without hating yourself. That is it. That is success. You do not have to be happy. You do not have to celebrate. You do not have to feel hopeful. You just have to survive. You have to get through the night without collapsing into despair, without spiraling so deeply into shame that you cannot function, without doing something harmful to yourself out of pain. If you wake up on January 1st and you are still here, still breathing, still okay, that is success. That is extraordinary success. And within that definition, there are smaller successes. Did you follow your plan for the day? Success. Did you avoid social media? Success. Did you reach out for connection when you needed it? Success. Did you treat yourself with gentleness? Success. Did you go to bed when you were tired? Success. Did you resist the urge to make big decisions out of panic? Success. All of those are wins. All of those are evidence that you are taking care of yourself, that you are surviving intentionally instead of just enduring passively. And recognizing those wins is what allows you to see that you are not failing. You are succeeding at the thing that actually matters: survival. Walter Rizzo teaches that when you redefine success to match your actual capacity, you free yourself from the shame of not meeting impossible standards. And right now, your capacity is limited. You are alone. You are struggling. You are carrying shame. So your standards need to reflect that reality. Success is not thriving. Success is surviving. And surviving is enough. Surviving is everything. The 10th and final tool is planning January 1st intentionally. Because January 1st is also hard. You wake up and the new year has started. And nothing has changed. You are still alone. You are still carrying everything you were carrying on December 31st. And the cultural narrative says January 1st is supposed to be fresh starts and new beginnings and hope. But you do not feel any of that. You feel the same, or worse. Because now you have survived New Year's Eve and you are exhausted. So you need a plan for January 1st that protects you from the pressure to suddenly be different just because the calendar changed. Here is how to plan January 1st. The week before, you decide, what do I need on January 1st? Do I need rest? Do I need connection? Do I need solitude? Do I need to move my body? Do I need to do something that gives me a sense of accomplishment? You figure out what you need. And then you plan the day around that need. If you need rest, you rest. You stay in bed. You watch movies. You do nothing. And you do not feel guilty. If you need connection, you reach out. You call someone. You go somewhere you might run into people. You do not isolate if isolation is going to make you feel worse. If you need solitude, you protect it. You do not let anyone pressure you into socializing if solitude is what you need. And you do not make New Year's resolutions on January 1st. You do not look at your life and make a list of everything you need to fix. You do not start the year with self-criticism. You start the year with self-compassion. You say, I survived. I made it through December 31st. I made it to the new year. And that is enough for today. Today, I am just going to rest and recover. I am not going to solve my entire life today. I am just going to be gentle with myself. And that gentleness is what allows you to start the year without immediately destroying yourself with impossible expectations. Let me tell you about Ruth. She is 65. Last year, she spent New Year's Eve alone. She survived. And on January 1st, she woke up feeling nothing, not hopeful, not excited, just tired. And she decided, today I am doing nothing. I am not making resolutions. I am not planning my year. I am not trying to be better. I am just going to rest. And that is exactly what she did. She stayed in bed until noon. She read a book. She took a nap. She made herself soup. And by the end of the day, she felt okay. Not great, but okay. And okay was more than she expected. Ruth told me, I used to think January 1st had to be productive, but last year I gave myself permission to do nothing. And that permission was the kindest gift I could have given myself. That is the truth. January 1st does not have to be productive. It does not have to be the start of a new you. It can just be a day you survive, a day you rest, a day you honor where you actually are instead of forcing yourself into where you think you should be. So here is where we are. You now understand the 5 lies the culture tells you about being alone on New Year's Eve. That it means you are socially unsuccessful, that you should be celebrating, that being alone means you are lonely, that your aloneness is permanent, and that other people's celebrations are as perfect as they look. You understand the real reasons you might be alone and why none of them are shameful. Your social circle has changed, you have standards now, you are grieving, you are exhausted, or you chose to be alone. You understand the psychological damage that shame causes, believing you are defective, isolating further, rejecting yourself, and becoming desperate for validation. And you have 10 tools for surviving: cognitive reframing, planning intentionally, setting boundaries with social media, creating a personal ritual, reaching out for connection if you want it, giving yourself permission to sleep early, treating yourself with gentleness, not making big decisions, redefining success, and planning January 1st with compassion. Now let me tell you something you need to hear. If you survive New Year's Eve alone, if you make it to January 1st without hating yourself, that is extraordinary. That is powerful. That is you refusing to internalize the culture's message that your aloneness means you are defective. You are not defective. You are a woman over 50 navigating a culture that makes connection harder as you age. A culture that isolates you and then shames you for being isolated. A culture that treats New Year's Eve like a social report card and tells you that if you are alone, you have failed. But you have not failed. You are alone on one night, and one night is not your entire life. And here is what else I need you to know. Being alone on New Year's Eve does not mean you will always be alone. Circumstances change. People change. You change. This moment, this December 31st, is not permanent. It is just where you are right now. And where you are right now is survivable. You have survived hard things before. You have survived loss. You have survived rejection. You have survived years of your life that felt impossible. And you are going to survive this night too. Not because it is easy, but because you are stronger than you realize. And because surviving is what you do. Walter Riso teaches that your worth is not determined by external circumstances. Your worth is intrinsic. It exists whether you are alone or surrounded by people. It exists whether you have plans or you do not. It exists whether you are celebrating or you are just surviving. And the goal is not to prove your worth to anyone else. The goal is to believe in your worth yourself, to know deeply that you matter, that you are enough, that your aloneness on December 31st does not diminish you, and that knowing, that certainty, is what allows you to survive with your dignity intact. Before you leave this video, I need you to do 4 things. First, go to the comments. If you are spending New Year's Eve alone, type, "I am here." Just 3 words, "I am here." And scroll through and see how many other people typed the same thing. Because you are not alone in your aloneness. Thousands of women are spending New Year's Eve alone. And knowing that, seeing that, is part of releasing the shame. You are not the only one. You are part of a community of women surviving this night together. Second, choose 3 tools from this video. Write them down. Commit to using them on December 31st. Not all 10, just 3. The 3 that feel most necessary for your survival. And protect those tools. Use them without guilt, without apology, because your survival matters. Third, subscribe to this channel. Turn on notifications. Because in early January, I am releasing a video about how to navigate the first week of the new year when you feel like nothing has changed. That video is going to help you move forward without crushing yourself with impossible expectations. You need that video, so subscribe now and hit that bell. Fourth, share this video with someone who is spending New Year's Eve alone, someone who is ashamed, someone who thinks they are the only one, someone who needs to hear that being alone is not failure. Send them this video. Let them know you are not alone, you are not defective, and you are going to survive this. You are not pathetic for being alone on New Year's Eve. You are human. You are not failing for struggling with this night. You are surviving a culturally constructed ritual that was never designed to accommodate your reality. You are not broken for feeling shame. You are experiencing a predictable response to a culture that weaponizes aloneness against you, and you are allowed to reject that weapon. You are allowed to say, "My aloneness does not define me. My worth is not determined by whether I have plans on December 31st. I am enough, alone or surrounded, celebrating or surviving. I am enough." And on January 1st, when you wake up and realize you survived, you are going to feel something you have not felt in a long time: pride. Not because the night was easy, but because you survived it, because you refused to let shame destroy you, because you treated yourself with gentleness instead of cruelty. Because you made it through one of the hardest nights of the year with your dignity intact. And that pride, that knowledge that you can survive hard things without abandoning yourself, that is what carries you forward. Not just into January, into the rest of your life. You are not alone. Even when you are alone, you are not alone. Because millions of women are carrying this same struggle. Millions of women are navigating the shame of being alone on a night the culture says you should be celebrating. And together, even though we are physically apart, we are surviving. We are refusing to internalize the lie that our aloneness is failure. We are reclaiming our worth. We are building lives that honor our reality instead of forcing ourselves into scripts that do not fit. And that work, that quiet, private, courageous work, is changing everything. Not loudly, not dramatically, but profoundly. So survive December 31st. However you need to, sleep through it, cry through it, rest through it, connect through it, ritual through it, whatever it takes. And when you wake up on January 1st, know that you did it. You survived. And surviving makes you strong. Surviving makes you brave. Surviving makes you someone who refuses to let the culture define your worth. And that refusal is revolutionary. I see you, and I will see you in the next video.